Hello, welcome everyone. We'll just give everyone a couple more minutes to filter in, and then we can kick off this week's community call. Great to see the usual Stargate DAO members, Stargate community members, Stargate Foundation core team contributors. Shout out to everyone that has arrived early. We'll just give everyone 2-3 minutes to roll into the community call, and then we'll kick things off. Craig is, of course, here to record the community call. These have been going up in the Stargate Media channel under updates, which is a new channel for recordings of the community calls that are hosted bi-weekly in the Stargate Discord community server. We can also put things up there of similar nature, so spaces or anywhere where we have good press and Stargate Foundation members joining different discussions across the internet. If you actually head over there, you can see a recent Spaces that was recorded, hosted by Mac Exchange, a good friend of Stargate. Lamps was in there discussing the bridging landscape, talking about the pros and cons of all the different architectures that we integrate and build on top of. Alrighty.
The next episode of that series is tomorrow at 5 p.m. in case anybody was interested.
Fantastic. I'll definitely be there. Alrighty. Thanks everyone for joining. Looks like we have the core community members here for now, so let's get started. Just with our regular introductions to the community call. Welcome to the Stargate Finance Community call. We'll be discussing proposals and ideas that will help shape and govern the Stargate protocol. Feel free to join the conversation on stage anytime you have a question. Simply click on the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen. This is a call where we get together as a community to discuss ideas and topics that help shape the future of Stargate. Any discussion around digital assets should not be construed as investment advice or recommendation. Please remember to do your own research on any topics discussed in here and consult your own advisors. With that being said, it's been a very busy couple weeks. January has been a fantastic month for the Stargate Foundation and Stargate DAO. We've been working closely together to deliver on some of the proposals that were passed at the end of last year and in the first couple weeks of January. So with everything that's been going on, I think it'd be good for us to walk through one by one all of the exciting developments that have taken place over this period of time. So we can start off with some new integrations. Obviously, I'm sure the community has seen everything that's been going on and have been following closely. Abstract went live earlier this week. The Abstract mainnet launched on Monday evening, which was a massive event for the Stargate community. Abstract is probably one of the most highly anticipated chains to go live in 2025. They did some brilliant marketing, a lot of which we've discussed together as a community. The core principles of what the ecosystem is trying to drive and pioneer for the crypto industry as a whole, really trying to abstract away the complexity of being on chain and simplify it for the average user, the mainstream audience. We're actually very close with the Abstract core team, a bunch of great guys building out the Abstract protocol, the Abstract chain, and Finn, their marketing lead, is a close friend of mine. We've discussed sort of cross-pollination between the two communities a number of times now, and obviously it's very early days for Abstract. They just launched. And we'll discuss a little bit more in just a second about how Stargate really boosted their ecosystem with day one liquidity. But just wanted to mention to the Stargate community, for those of us that are here and for those of us that end up listening to the recording later on in time, I think it'd be great for us to do a Stargate stream on the Abstract native streaming site. If you head over to Abstract's ecosystem, they've got a Discover page. I can link that in the chat here. That's been linked in the chat. If you head over there, you'll see all the different apps and ecosystems. Now, as I've said a number of times, I think it's really important that Stargate community members, given that we're able to bridge across so many different chains and ecosystems, are privy and gain that insight before anyone else does into the apps and protocols and chains that are most worth exploring. So if you have a look at what's going on in that ecosystem, I'd highly recommend checking out some of their apps, such as Myriad. Myriad's a really interesting one. Go have some fun, bridge in through Stargate. Remember, that's USDC, Hydra USDC, Hydra USDT, and an ETH pool set up between Stargate and Abstract. Actually, since we've got Lamps here, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about Abstract and how the launch went, if there was anything that the Stargate Foundation took away from the launch, and maybe discuss some of the metrics. How much volume has Abstract brought to Stargate in the first couple days?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Abstract launch was obviously very highly anticipated. We've been working with their team for a long while, and it was really cool to see just a slightly different onboarding experience. Typically, when a chain goes live, it goes live on the Stargate front end, and people come to the front end and bridge. But the approach that the Abstract team took was having it kind of natively inbuilt into the Abstract global wallet, which is a kind of account abstracted or a smart contract wallet, which you can use to interact across all of Abstract. And so you can kind of bring your loyalty points, obviously bring your assets, but bring your entire kind of profile to the different applications within the ecosystem. At the top right-hand corner of that wallet is something called Fund Wallet. And if you click on that, you can choose to deposit by a debit card. They have a couple on-ramping partners, but you can also choose to bridge, which will take you into the Jumper front end. Stargate obviously is the canonical bridge using Hydra. So USDC and USDT are issued out of Hydra and out of the Stargate protocol. The Stargate DAO also approved the deployment of an ETH pool on Abstract, and so that did go live, which has done a decent amount of volume. The most recent number that I saw for that ETH pool over the past kind of 36 hours is about $5 million of volume. I think USDC and USDT in total have done more than that. USDC potentially up to 6 or 7 million. I'll see if I can pull the exact number. Maybe Henry has it. But I think overall, kind of very good first few days for Abstract. I know they have a ton of plans in the making for obviously the kind of Pudgies and the Pengu token, but also just in general for the ecosystem. And it seems to be a very consumer focused ecosystem. That was always their goal. They have streaming platforms set up where you can tip using Stargate's USDC, using Hydra USDC. I think something that's quite interesting is that there is now about $5 million of USDC on the chain already within 24, 36 hours. And so that is $5 million locked into Stargate's pools at zero cost of capital, which at an annualized rate is saving Stargate anywhere between kind of 400 to 600K a year. And so again, more Hydra integrations, more locked liquidity into the protocol, and also just more connections to new ecosystems. I think something that Henry here might be excited about is the fact that we now have access to the Abstract ecosystem. All of their users will be familiar with Stargate because they have to use it to bridge in. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for a bit of kind of community alignment and general growth.
100%. Really excited with everything going on over at Abstract. A couple of us at the core team have been playing around with some of the new dApps that these guys are really trying to pioneer. That they've introduced a point system on some of these apps to sort of simplify and remove some of the more perverse incentives that come with airdrop farmers moving into these newer ecosystems and chain environments. So yeah, highly recommend people go check it out. As I said, I'm going to be pestering Finn, the marketing lead over at Abstract, who I'm sure is inundated with messages and outreach at the minute. But as I said, good relationship with him and their team in general. So stay tuned for some announcements for some sort of community collaboration there. Right, moving on, we have a couple more Hydra announcements, just quick ones worth remembering. So the Plume USDT asset is now live. We initially deployed USDC and wrapped ETH to Plume. You can now grab the USDT asset, and that will be live on the Plume mainnet, which I think, just to give a little bit of alpha, is going live in a couple weeks. So check their Twitter account out and give them a follow. Once again, another great team. They did their TGE about a week ago. They did their TGE, which was super successful. So the Plume asset is now live and trading on the markets. And so yes, the Plume USDT asset is also available for Stargate community members to bridge. Next, we had Peak USDT. Same dynamic here. Peak went live with Hydra, USDC, and ETH, and now you are able to bridge the USDT asset as well. For a reminder, Peak is pioneering this concept of machine DeFi, sort of machine-to-machine stablecoin payments, which is a very interesting concept we've discussed a number of times in the community, but definitely worth checking out the early ecosystem over there and letting the liquidity flow. Alrighty, time for some OFTs. Now, there's a long list of OFTs that have gone live over the past couple weeks. I'm sure the community members have seen some of the recent banners and marketing content we've been putting out. We're really starting to fire up the marketing pipeline and get lots of colorful content out for the Stargate community. I'm very aware that that's something that a lot of core community members were very keen to see, namely, more content, more PR, capture more mind share. Stargate typically takes quite a neutral and well-established protocol tone when we are posting on Twitter. We're aware that crypto and DeFi comes with lots of different cultural niches, whether that's degens or people that use very arcane language to explain how things work. Everything is welcome, and we're going to be putting out a lot more content, as I've mentioned a couple times. So hopefully the community is enjoying some of the beginnings of that as we put that out. So on the OFT front, as you probably have seen, Stargate is the home of all OFTs. We pride ourselves on being able to list OFTs quicker than anyone else, and really be the front end for all OFT transactions across the multi-chain and omni-chain ecosystem, right? So just to give you guys a bit of a list here, we had the Pengu OFT, which is obviously dovetails nicely in from the abstract ecosystem. The Pengu OFT is a very popular token, meme coin, utility coin. It's actually able to do lots of things now that abstract's gone live. You can bridge Pengu from a number of chains, Solana, ETH, BNB. Go check it out on the front end. Super exciting. We also had wrapped Bitcoin go live on Sonium. Stargate's been working closely with Sonium over the past couple weeks to get some integrations set up over there. Sonium is Sony's L2 chain, which is going to be very interesting. So keep your eyes peeled for Sonium as that goes live over the coming weeks. Now, I would be completely remiss to not mention the one and only presidential meme coin, Trump. Trump went live a couple weeks back. It would have been impossible to miss it. It was a massive launch and event for the crypto community in general. Stargate, alongside Ambient, which is a close friend of the Stargate community, their team bridged out a Trump token and basically allowed Stargate to list that as an OFT. We put out some colorful marketing on Twitter and up in the Discord. If you head over to announcements, you'll see the Trump meme coin went live for bridging between Solana and Ace, and a couple other chains have been integrated since. Melania too, Trump's lovely wife, Melania, also launched her own token. I mean, there's so much lore and banter that's been spread around these two tokens. Love it or hate it, these things happened, and Stargate was able to list them and bridge them before anyone else, which I think is a testament to how nimble the team is and open to, you know, embracing all the various different things that come along with the industry that we are in. Alrighty. With all that being said, OFTs and new integrations covered, I think it could be interesting for the community to get a bit of a discussion going around some of the recent protocol updates and Stargate DAO updates. Now, if you've been paying attention in the community over the past 48 hours, you would have seen that two very important new proposals have gone up in the Discord, in the discourse, one of which has been passed over to the snapshot for voting and is currently underway. So go head over to Snapshot and check that out and place your vote. But to prompt a bit of a discussion here, if we could have a look at these two proposals. So in community updates for anyone, here, let me just put the link. I'll copy the message link into the community call chat and everyone can head over there. Here we go. That's in the chat now. If you head over to community updates, you'll see the links which take you to the discourse discussions, the forum where you can discuss, where you can read through the different proposals that have gone up over the last 48 hours. So the first of which is the Hydra expansion program. Now, the Hydra expansion program outlines an expansion initiative for Hydra. So it's proposed for the DAO to allocate up to 10 million US dollars worth of Stargate tokens to support key initiatives on Hydra chains. This allocation should last 12 months, and any funds not used should roll over into the following year. If approved, Boyko, which is Berachain's implementation of the Royco protocol, which we discussed in depth on the last community call, will be the first recipient of funds under this program. Now, you can look through the proposal itself to see some pretty sophisticated models, quantitative models that the Stargate Foundation team spent a lot of time working on. Some really good and thoughtful work went into really comparing all the different outcomes, the bear case, the bull case, you know, how this is going to look over time as we deploy and make some changes to how the protocol puts out emissions and how we can cut emissions and, you know, increase the sort of the decrease the cell pressure, these sorts of things that a lot of people in the Stargate DAO have been asking about for a while now. So if everyone's got that proposal up, from the link I sent, it'd be great to maybe discuss a little bit more about this proposal. I know we had a couple questions in the price action channel over the past 24 hours. So if we could, let's see, what question should we start with? There's one that I put in here from Exahash in Think Tank. If you link out there.
I can also start by giving kind of some of the foundation's thinking or some of the background. I know you spoke through a little bit of it,
That would
but
be great.
talking through kind of the ideas behind this proposal or like where it even all comes from, right? So the idea behind Stargate V2, or if you even take it back to where Stargate V1 was struggling, Stargate V1 only had native assets on all chains. It only had pool implementations on all chains. And with a Stargate pool, you have to have liquidity deposited into those pools. And that can either be from, you know, Stargate DAO using its protocol and liquidity to do so, or it can be from incentivizing that action using the STG token, which is typically what has been done. And for those that were here on day one of Stargate way back in the day, that is exactly what happened. There was 2.11% of the STG token that was allocated to the initial incentives emission program. And for a period of, I believe it was 6 to 8 weeks, the STG token was emitted at a much higher rate than probably what was necessary in order to really bootstrap the liquidity within the Stargate protocol. With some of the flywheels that we had back in the day, STG token price going up and the TVL was really going up. We hit that total of $4.5 billion of TVL at a certain point, which was far more than is necessary, but kind of illustrates the point that if you pay people to put money into a pool, they will do so, especially if the token price is going up, and it had that flywheel back in the day. As a lot of that settled down, the Stargate V1 protocol, as it expanded to, call it 15 chains, I think it is on today, needed about $350 million of liquidity to be kind of sustainable and to facilitate the volume that it was seeing. And so the goal for a long time for the Stargate DAO was to accumulate enough protocol-owned liquidity to fill those pools, ourselves, fill the pools with the DAO treasury, and therefore not need to incentivize any pools. The reason why incentivization is not that interesting for the DAO long term is because the DAO does have a finite treasury. The DAO has about 28 to 30% of the token supply in its treasury, and wanting to keep that for kind of longer term initiatives is obviously ideal. So wanting to reduce incentives alongside increasing the amount of protocol owned liquidity was always the goal for Stargate. And that's why historically, with some of the chains that Stargate was launching on, for example, Optimism, the entirety of the majority of the Optimism airdrop was actually used to incentivize the Stargate pools on Optimism, so that those incentives were in the OP token instead of in the STG token. And so again, kind of long term, the goal for Stargate has always been accumulate protocol owned liquidity, as well as reduce the amount of STG emissions that are given out. So how that changes with Stargate V2 is that when users are bridging to a Hydra chain, such as Abstract, as we were just talking about, the liquidity that they are bridging, if I'm bridging from Ethereum mainnet, the USDC that I'm bridging into Abstract gets locked in the Ethereum USDC pool, and then we mint the equivalent STG USDC on Abstract, which is the canonical USDC within that ecosystem. The cool thing is that if I'm bridging $1 million into Abstract, there will be an extra $1 million in the liquidity pool on Ethereum. So the goal with Hydra is to generate enough adoption across enough ecosystems that their total TVL, or the total amount of USDC issued on those chains, is more USDC than Stargate needs within its pools. And so what that looks like today is Stargate has about $80 million of USDC locked in its pools, maybe 70 million. And the total amount of USDC issued on Hydra chains is about 27 to 30 million. And so we're about halfway there. And already, since Stargate V2 went live about 6 months ago, Stargate has reduced the amount of it, or has been able to reduce the amount of emissions given out for USDC assets by 50%. Less emissions means less people that are farming the STG token with their liquidity, and therefore less sell pressure. And so again, the long-term goal of Hydra is to generate enough adoption on these Hydra chains in order to reduce the STG emissions and therefore save the DAO treasury, increase the roadmap or the longevity of the protocol, and then generally just generate fees across all of these pathways. I'm just looking at some questions that are coming in at the time. How far are we away from reaching adequate POL to self-sustain? It's a very interesting question, because for Stargate V1, that number used to be we need $300 million. Today we have 100 million. For Stargate V2, the amount that we need changes every single day because there's more and more liquidity going into Hydra chains. And so today we still have 100 million or slightly over $100 million of protocol and liquidity, but there's an additional 55 to $60 million of free capital in what we've been calling protocol locked liquidity. And so the idea behind this proposal is that actually, if you were to reduce the incentives given on the pools, the capital efficiency of an incentive given on the Stargate's pools is about, for every $1 you're incentivizing, and I may get these numbers wrong, but the maths around it is correct. You get about $47 of locked liquidity within Stargate pools. The idea behind this proposal is that if you instead were to incentivize protocols on, for example, Berachain, not only are you incentivizing with the STG token, but if you incentivize something like Dolomite are incentivizing with their token, with their points, with some Bera tokens. And so instead of just one STG dollar pull in liquidity, you also have some Dolomite tokens and some Bera tokens. And so for every STG dollar that we're providing, there's actually about, call it $120 to $130 of liquidity. And so it is a far more capital efficient way of incentivizing. And so the goal behind this proposal is that instead of incentivizing directly on Stargate's pools, you incentivize the protocols of the Hydra ecosystems. You bring liquidity in there for cheaper. You lock more capital in Stargate's pools. And long term, you also just bring more liquidity into that ecosystem, which one day will have to leave and therefore accrue fees to the Stargate protocol. So the idea here is really that Stargate can reduce the amount of incentives it is spending pretty significantly by participating within the different ecosystems that we're going to, and therefore also creating some alignment. That was a lot of chat, but hopefully sets up the reason for why this proposal kind of makes sense for the Stargate DAO and for the Stargate Treasury long term, and why it kind of aligns with Hydra's success.
Absolutely. Thanks for the comprehensive explanation there, Lamps. I actually had a question there. I think the community would love to know sort of like what is probably covered it in that explanation, but what is the main thing about Hydra that really sets us apart in the sort of overall bridging landscape? Do you think of Hydra as a bridge per se, or has it got something extra, something emergent that comes from having this sort of level of liquidity turning into to PLL, and this sort of dynamic here? That's something that we don't see in the broader bridging landscape. Could you touch on that for us?
Yeah, definitely. I think. I thought I was muted for a sec. So a lot of people in the ecosystem will compare Stargate to all of the other bridges that are out there. A lot of people have compared Stargate to a Cross, or today with Relay, or maybe Mayan. But actually, Stargate's architecture is very different. So I think Stargate's unique selling point today is Hydra. And Hydra is a solution for a canonical and composable bridge. And so if you think of something like Berachain, Berachain is an alt L1. They, in theory, should not have any connection to any other blockchain ecosystems. Naturally, with something like layer 0, you can connect to another ecosystem. But in terms of actually providing a canonical bridge for assets and for liquidity, Stargate is the only player in the space that is offering this canonical bridging for the core assets that get bridged: Ethereum, USDC, and USDT. And so again, in the example of Berachain, the only solution, there are two ways that they could have gone about getting USDC on the network. One is they issue their own canonical bridge. They have to build the interrupt solution, or they could just provide kind of a simple OFT from Ethereum using layer 0. Or they use something like Stargate's Hydra, and they immediately have access to Ethereum, Arbitrum, Base, Optimism, etc., and are able to pull in an unlimited amount of liquidity from all of those networks. There is no other architecture or bridge in the space that is able to do so. What it means for Stargate is that Stargate will perpetually own the rails that govern that ecosystem. And so as the asset issuer of, for example, wrapped ETH within the ecosystem, all canonical bridging, all bridging of wrapped ETH will always go through Stargate, which is a great place to be. There may be other bridges that hold Stargate's wrapped ETH on that ecosystem and offer some intent-based solution. But even so, that intent-based solution will have to settle using Stargate. And so Stargate becomes the rails upon which all other bridges are built and owns those rails. And so moving forward sets itself up for a very, very good future.
Wonderful. Yeah, super excited about Hydra. And probably the most exciting thing about the system, in my view, is the fact that you open up a whole liquidity network. I don't actually think of it as a bridge per se. Of course, it is a bridge because you can move assets across chains, but I see it as a liquidity network, right? You've got all these Hydra chains, and I think we're at like over 20 Hydra chains now, which is this unique network of different chains that you can explore and move assets across that no other bridging service will be able to do for you in that same way with those same assets. So I think that's really exciting, and super excited as well for something like Boico, which is gonna just double down on Hydra and really boost the protocol locked liquidity. People can check out the funds that are flowing into Boico, which went live about 24 hours ago, and then went down and then came back up again. I mean, the Royco team, which is the protocol that underpins Boico, they've been super active, jumping into a number of spaces, and they just hit 10K followers. It seems like one of the most interesting novel protocols that have come out of the past couple months in DeFi, and it's really allowing, with the likes working with the likes of Hydra and Stargate and people at Layer Zero, the technology there. I think they've built this unique solution for chains to bootstrap day one liquidity. And not just trivial amounts of liquidity. We're talking billions of dollars. There was over $2 billion that were pre-deposited into the Boyko vaults, and now with the the pre-deposits, and now Boyko's gone live, and I think $100 million. We're about to touch $100 million there. So a lot of capital, and Stargate plays a unique role in sort of facilitating the flows of liquidity there. So very excited to continue watching Hydra expand, and even more excited to see the proposal up in the DAO, and any more questions that people have with respect to this topic, and should they want more educational content, more explainers, whatever it is, we're here to facilitate and provide that for you guys in the community. And yes, Godspeed to Hydra. Alrighty. There was another proposal that went up in the Stargate DAO yesterday alongside the Hydra expansion program, and this was the Stargate DAO Treasury Consolidation proposal. Now, once again, I recommend that people read through it. Tristan Nuts, OX Nuts, was working a lot of hours. He put a lot of hours into this proposal to understand all the different scenarios and ways in which the DAO's treasury could be, put to use to generate the most efficient and most capital efficient and yield generating opportunities, right? So I think it's really important that people read through and understand the details of this proposal. Once again, Lamps, could we just quickly discuss this proposal together and just give a bit more of an overview to the DAO? I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, 100%. So as I touched on earlier, the Stargate DAO holds about $100 million in protocol and liquidity across ETH, USDC, and USDT, as well as holding a lot of STG from the initial DAO treasury. The way that this kind of splits up in practice is that there are two places that the Stargate DAO historically has allocated its treasury. One is into on-chain liquidity, so the STG token paired against a stablecoin, either USDC or USDT. Anyone who's kind of participated in our governance will have seen over the past few years proposals come up to move liquidity into certain positions. And so today, Stargate holds a position on Curve. It holds some of its position on Convex. It held some Convex voting position. On BNB chain, it holds a STG USDT position on PancakeSwap. On Avalanche, it holds a STG position on LFJ, previously Trader Joe. On Polygon, it holds on SushiSwap, etc., etc. Holds STG, USDC positions or stablecoin positions across many different places. The goal for Stargate is to not only provide liquidity for the STG token, so people can trade it and sell it and buy it. It is also to accumulate fees and accumulate yield on those positions. Because a lot of those positions are quite legacy, some of the protocols that Stargate DAO has deployed capital into aren't generating all that much yield, maybe because they are not doing any volume, or maybe because the incentives have kind of dried up. And so the goal of this proposal is manifold. There are four parts to it. One is to kind of consolidate all of these positions. At the moment, Stargate has a lot of on-chain liquidity relative to kind of market cap and what it needs, because this has now been spread out across many chains. And so part of this proposal is to consolidate some of that, keep the kind of best performing positions, but to withdraw some of the other positions into the DAO treasury, kind of ready to be allocated elsewhere. Additionally, Stargate also holds actually the majority of its protocol and liquidity in the Stargate V1 protocol. This was a conscious decision to leave it in the V1 protocol as partners migrated off of Stargate V1. Liquidity naturally has flown out since incentives have been turned off for a long time now. But now, when I think the current live volume for Stargate V1 is kind of sub $1 million a day, and so having almost $50 million or actually $60 million held in Stargate V1 doesn't make a ton of sense. And so part of this proposal is to migrate that liquidity out of Stargate V1 slowly into Stargate V2. And that kind of ties into another part of the proposal, which is just generally take some of the assets that the DAO holds in its multi-sig wallets and put that into Stargate V2 as well. Since it is better served providing liquidity to Stargate than it is just sitting in a wallet. Not necessarily because it accrues fees or anything, but again, more TVL to Stargate just generally makes for a better user experience. And I may have covered all four of the points in what I thought was three. I'm just scrolling through. So one of them is to, I see part one is just extending a previous proposal that was on Stargate to take some of the kind of volatile assets that Stargate holds and to consolidate those into ETH. So there's a table in the proposal that outlines those volatile assets, and again, aligning with a previous mandate from the Stargate DAO to consolidate those into ETH. I think generally is just the goal of the proposal is kind of just a cleanup in the same way that at the end of the year, you'll kind of go through your financial statements, your personal financial statements, figure out where you're holding capital, which coins you hold in which random wallets, maybe sell some of them to USDC or ETH. And in a similar way, do the same for the DAO treasury such that we are positioned, or the DAO is positioned to deploy that capital if and when needed.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a very interesting proposal, so highly recommend people read through there. We have a lot of discussion in the community, especially in the price action channel, about things of this nature, including protocol owned liquidity, and how that sort of translates and how much of that is in protocol locked liquidity, and all of these metrics that sometimes can be quite difficult to, put your finger on and understand why they're really important, and how they impact the future of the Stargate protocol. So any questions that you have going forward on these sorts of topics, please do drop them in the chats, and we can definitely field those questions for you. The questions just come in from Sendok. Any estimate on how long it would take to finish consolidating the treasury?
Well, it's a good question. A lot of it could be done relatively quickly. The kind of conversion of the volatile assets into ETH is a relatively simple task. The removal of the various LP positions is also a simple task, but will be done kind of carefully in a considered manner just to ensure that a lot of these liquidity pairs are used by arbitrage bots or maybe even the market maker to ensure that there's kind of price parity across all different venues, and so it will be done in a relatively considered manner. With regards to removing the liquidity from Stargate V1, will also be a sort of gradual process. There are some changes to the weightings of the pools and a little bit of rebalancing to do, and so I estimate that to take between kind of 2 to 4 weeks in total. So I think if this proposal does go through, then in the 2 weeks following, hopefully we'll line up with a nice community call. We can give an update on it where I'll say maybe 40 to 50% of the actions have been taken. And then for maximum 6 weeks later, the entire proposal will have been executed. It's just important to do some of these things in a considered manner. It is no small sum of money. And so moving around that size through DeFi, you just want to make sure that everything is being considered.
Great. Hopefully that answers your question, Sendok. Just seen another question, if I scrolled up a little bit, from Exahash on Solana integration being one of the main concerns with a couple of the core community members. We've discussed this a number of times within the DAO and within the Discord, within the community at large. I think a Solana integration isn't off the cards in the future, in the long-term future of the Stargate protocol and for the Foundation. We've provided sort of a lot of reasoning as to why it isn't necessarily the most strategical thing to work on at present, and why things that we've been discussing today actually take precedence and probably are in fact more important for the future of the Stargate protocol. I actually posted quite recently a video in the Building Bridges channel, if people have seen that channel, in the Stargate season Discord zone. The Layer Zero team, they work very closely with the Solana Foundation to sort of find ways to improve the SVM from an interop perspective. And a lot of time and resources are going into those sorts of developments. And Stargate's very close to this community as they make these innovations, and it's definitely on the cards in the long-term future of the foundation. But for now, I'd like to remind people that you can bridge a number of OFTs from all of Stargate's connected chains into and out of Solana. So if you have any questions about which tokens, which OFTs specifically can be bridged, feel free to ping me in the Discord, and I will give you a comprehensive list. Some of those we discussed earlier are definitely included there. I guess another question came in on Aura pools. So what are the
Yep.
challenges with the Aura pool? Could you field that one?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure which challenges there are. The Aura pool currently holds a decent amount of Stargate's LP position in an STG USDC, which the underlying goes into Balancer. I think it has a relatively good yield. I think the number is probably in the proposal. And then the Stargate DAO holds a decent chunk of Aura tokens as well, a few $100,000, which again, under a previous mandate, should be maintained in case of any desire to vote, for example. And yes, Exahash's most recent question, what was the most recent APY for stakers, was exactly 19.49% for the previous month. There will obviously be another one going out in 2 or 3 days here, or will be calculated in 2 or 3 days, and then will be available probably 7 days from then as the epoch cycles over. And the questions get published in the UI. Henry, you probably have an update on that if it's not already.
It's on there. You can check the Stargate front end. It should be on there. If you maybe clear your cache and refresh your browser, we pushed that. There we go. Showing up for lamps. It's also showing up for me. I was about to post the same screenshot. Exahash, if that doesn't show up after refreshing the browser, please let me know, and I'll make sure that we test that properly. Make sure it shows up, because that is a very juicy APY on Stargate's stake. Now, we've discussed a lot. This has been a particularly long and fruitful conversation about a bunch of new proposals, integrations, OFTs, and developments for the Stargate protocol and community. I've had a lot of ideas for how we can expand and give the community members, the VE stakers, all of these different members of the community, new opportunities and new chances to gain perks and benefits from being in the community and really contributing to the Stargate DAO. I think I wanted to leave this week really for the purpose of these important proposals and changes that are coming for the Stargate protocol, should the DAO be aligned with the foundation. And going forward, I think we're going to have a lot more opportunities. Something like the Stargate Genesis merch collection is on the way. For those of us that are in the community call today, I can inform and confirm that the Stargate Genesis merch collection is coming, and it's going to be great. It's going to be truly great, and it's going to go out to community members that are active and those of us that participate and make contributions to the protocol. Stargate community has been around for almost 3 years now, so it's not a new thing, right? We've been around for a while. I've been around for 10% of that time, roughly 3 months now, and it's a great place to be, and it's a pleasure to work with everyone here. And I'm aware that there are still frustrations, there are still concerns that people who truly have spent a lot of their time discussing this protocol and thinking about the future and how they shape the future of the Stargate community, those still exist. So I want to work with everyone in the community to, squash some of those frustrations and really look forward to a new Stargate season, right? I think we can. It's Stargate season, baby. There, I said it. I really think we've got lots of opportunities, merch being just one of them, for the community to be rewarded for sticking around. And there we go. There's a question. What is Stargate season? More information to come. For those of us that are here, if you check in the Discord, there is a new zone in the Stargate community called Stargate Season, and there's a bunch of channels in there. I'm not going to give away all the information just yet, because I'd like people to, build up some hype, and then we can discuss as a community what the purpose and intention is for this new initiative. But get involved, because it's going to have some nice rewards on the other end. Alrighty. This has been a very interesting community call. Really, really excited to see the new proposals go up, and lots of hard work and time went into these proposals. We really put the Stargate DAO first and think very carefully about the correct strategy to ensure that Stargate exists into perpetuity. Right, that's the goal here. We're in an industry that comes in cycles. It comes and goes. Attention comes and goes. Money comes and goes. Capital comes and goes. And Stargate's been around for 3 years, and it will probably be around for another 30. So I think it's really important to take a long-term view and remember what we're trying to build here. So kudos to everyone that's here, and looking forward to Stargate season. Alrighty, if there's no other questions, I see a couple people typing. Yep, thank you everyone for coming to the Stargate community call. It's Wednesday, 29th of January 2025. Hydra expansion program is up for voting. Stargate treasury consolidation is in the discourse, up for discussion. Soon will be up for voting. Let's get to it. Let's make Stargate community great again, and have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. See you in a couple weeks.
See you all soon. Cheers, guys.